What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bourbon and Bets. I'm your host, Zach Stonerock. Back this week for Week 5 in the NFL. Last weekend, we were out of town for my bachelor party. Did a little makeshift episode inside the hotel room with a couple of my buddies. I want to thank them again. Tim, who has been on the show previously, he joined us. We had Ryan, who was the Vikings fan, and we had Josh come in as well, who is a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So shout out to those guys. Obviously, those are good dudes. Play a very important part in my life. Obviously, that's why they were on my bachelor party with me, and they're going to be groomsmen in my wedding. So shout out to those guys. Appreciate them agreeing to jump on. I do want to apologize to everybody out there. Not that I truly feel like I owe this apology, but I know I put out a statement saying I was going to share a lot of content from the time we were out. Well, it was a bachelor party. Things got a little wild. Lots of drinks were involved. So I've always held the policy that it's best to stay off of social media when there's been a lot of alcohol involved. So that's kind of how we ended up where we ended up with that. So I apologize that we didn't share a lot more content with you. However, a lot of our picks didn't hit as well as what we hoped. It was pretty nice, though, being out in Pittsburgh in the state of Pennsylvania, where sports gambling is fully legal, and having it available at your fingertips on your phone through whatever different app you wanted to use. That was pretty nice because we're currently still utilizing a friend in another state to place our parlays that you see us posting on a weekly basis. So shout out to, I'm not going to give his name, but shout out to him. He knows who he is if he listens. Thank you for doing that. But let's go ahead and jump into it this week. If you guys haven't done so yet, before we get into it, make sure that you are following all of our social media accounts. The most dominant one that we utilize the most is going to be the Instagram account at Bourbon and Bets. I would say second from there, just because it's linked to the Instagram, would be our Facebook account, Bourbon and Bets Podcast. Go on there and go ahead and like our page on there. I'm thinking, fingers crossed, if all goes as planned, next week we will be doing a live show through Facebook Live. I don't have the logistics of that fully figured out yet, but that's the plan. So next week, keep your eye out for a live show. And then the following week after that is my wedding. So I'm not sure what that setup's going to look like. The wedding's on a Friday, so we might be able to make something happen Sunday morning, maybe. Depends on how everyone's feeling on Saturday. But let's not focus on the future. Let's go ahead and focus on the present. So let's go ahead and talk about NFL Week 3. So the way we're going to break down this episode is we are going to go through all the picks that are in our parlay, and then I will designate which of those are the On the Rocks picks. For those of you who are new to the show, the parlay is a lot of fun. Risk a little, win a lot. Big parlays, typically they're anywhere from 6 to 9 leg parlays. We have yet to hit one. Last year we came very close with a 9-leg parlay, but when the Las Vegas Raiders beat the Kansas City Chiefs, that killed that parlay. So let's see here. So that's the Big Boy Parlay. That's what we call it. It's the Big Boy Parlay because it is a big parlay. And then On the Rocks picks, those are my personal most confident picks each week, each day. If you follow the Instagram account, you'll see a lot of those picks on there. I was going through my mentions on Twitter. I don't use Twitter a lot. I'm not really good at it, but I do try. But I was going through my mentions the other day, and there were some pretty angry comments that I don't post enough picks. So we're gonna try to alleviate that. I've linked my Instagram to my Twitter, but I noticed that it doesn't just automatically show the picture. It essentially just sends a link for Twitter followers to click on to go to my Instagram. So I'm going to work on being a little bit better about posting on Twitter. And then YouTube as well. I'm going to try to upload this episode today to YouTube. There won't be an actual video that goes along with it. but there will be a still image until we figure out the visual side of it. So we got the audio side, now we just got to figure out the visual side and what that's going to look like moving forward. So let's go ahead and jump into Week 5 in the NFL. So there's actually a game going on right now as I'm recording this. It is 9:58 a.m., so it's still the first quarter in the New York Jets-Atlanta Falcons game. Falcons are up right now with it's 3-0 with 6:58 left in the first. So this game is included in the parlay. I have the bet slip, so if this hits and there's any questions about the picks and if they're authentic or not, I have the bet slip to show that it's dated. But so for this game here, we got the Jets versus the Falcons. They're playing in London, so it's a neutral field. Both teams are 1-3. The Jets last week beat the Titans in a real shocker, actually. That was pretty crazy. However, the Titans were without A.J. Brown and without Julio Jones. So regardless of how good Derrick Henry is, if there's no passing threat, they're just going to load the box, which is essentially what happened. And the Jets were able to shock the world, honestly. That ruined just about every single one of my parlays when I was in Pittsburgh. So I was pretty upset about that. And the Falcons lost to the Washington football team 30-34. It's weird because the Falcons, I don't know. Matt Ryan's an average quarterback. But the Washington football team, we just don't really know who they are. Like, losing to the Washington football team a couple years ago was a big deal, and now it's like we don't really know if they're a good team or not. Yeah, I don't know. It's that's a weird organization right now, but we're not focusing on them. This game opened with Atlanta -4. It's currently -2.5. We are actually taking the Jets money line, which obviously right now that's not looking great with it being 3-0. But that's easy to overcome. So that's going to be our first pick in the Big Boy Parlay. We're taking the money line here. I just got a lot more faith in Zach Wilson. I feel like the Jets have a little bit of extra confidence now after beating the Titans last week, and the Falcons are going to be without Calvin Ridley, or they are without Calvin Ridley or Russell Gage. So could be a big game for Kyle Pitts. Right now he only has 2 catches for 16 yards. So we'll see how that ends up. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So for the longest time, I always swore that I would never include the Carolina Panthers in any of my parlays. But I'm feeling really good about this team this year, especially with picking up Stephon Gilmore. I don't think he's playing this week. I think he has to wait one more week. And they're without Christian McCaffrey. But Carolina's home against the Philadelphia Eagles. This game opened at Carolina -4. Currently is at -2.5. Carolina's 3-1. Philadelphia's 1-3. The Panthers lost last week to the Cowboys 36-28. Even though that's a one possession game, 8 points, I think that the Cowboys really did run away with this game. Panthers made a nice little push at the end, but if you watch the game, the Cowboys pretty much dominated the entire game. But Sam Darnold is balling out, leading the league in rushing touchdowns, which shocking the world. I tell you what, if I were a rookie quarterback, I would want to go to an Adam Gase team and then either have them trade me away or after my contract get picked up by somebody else. That seems to be the recipe for success. It happened with Ryan Tannehill. It's now happening with Sam Darnold. I don't even know if Adam Gase is still in the league or not. I'm sure he's a coordinator somewhere. But Sam Darnold's having a good year. He's 6th in passing yards. So I actually have a few friendly side wagers with some of the guys from the show where I think Sam Darnold is going to finish top 5 for passing yards. Everyone seems to think that that's crazy, but here he is sitting at 6th. So Kyle Pitts with another catch for 18 yards. So, he's the only weapon they have this week. So he's probably gonna put it. Well, him and Cordero Patterson. But anyway, back to the game. The Eagles lost last week to Kansas City 42-10. So for this one here, we are going to go with Carolina -3, and this is an on the rocks pick. So we're locking this one in. Carolina -3. Next game, we're actually going to come to our home state here. We got the Green Bay Packers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Both these teams are 3-1, so it's a battle of 3-1 teams. This game has, or the line for this game has been consistent at -3 through all the way throughout. We got it at -3. Green Bay favored. Cincinnati's the dog. Last week, Green Bay beat the Steelers 27-17. Randall Cobb, they said that they wanted to get him more involved. They got him more involved. Aaron Rodgers threw 2 touchdown passes, and both of those were to Randall Cobb. The Bengals beat the Jags 24-21. We all know there was a little bit of drama there. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Bengals trailed the entire game until their game-winning field goal as time expired. So the Jags really gave them a run for their money. Now, whether there's any momentum built from that or not, we'll talk about that with this next game. But we are going to take the Green Bay Packers -3. Cincinnati's obviously made some improvements. They're 3-1. They're playing good ball. Joe Burrow is playing really well. But this Green Bay team, with the exception of week 1, where, it's still hard to explain what happened there. But Green Bay seems to be firing on all cylinders here. So Green Bay, I feel like that's I don't want to say it's a safe lock, but we are going to include that as a on the rocks pick. So far we have Carolina -3 and Green Bay -3 as on the rocks picks. Next game, we're actually going to follow up on some of that drama we just spoke about. We got the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Titans are 2-2. Jaguars are 0-4, which is tough for the Jags because you have Trevor Lawrence, who isn't used to losing football games, and Urban Meyer, who is one of the winningest coaches in all of college football. So neither one of these guys are used to losing. However, I personally think the world's overreacting. Dang it, Falcons just scored. So that might kill our parlay before this podcast even goes up. Extra point hasn't been kicked yet, but Younghoe Koo is pretty much automatic. So we're going to go ahead and say it's going to be 10-0. Anyway, back to this. So the Titans actually lost to the Jets last week. Again, we talked about actually we haven't talked about A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. No, we did talk about it. I feel like we talked about it. So they didn't have A.J. Brown or Julio Jones, so the Jets were able we talked about the Jets. The Jets were able just to load the box and slow down the Titans' offense. But A.J. Brown is back this week. And then Jacksonville lost to the Bengals last week. This is going to be a scandal game. Obviously, we saw what happened with Urban Meyer at his restaurants here in Dublin, Ohio, where he had some college girl grinding on him at the bar. Anyway, that is very weird. If you listen to any of the other podcasts out there, you listen to like Part of My Take or the Pat McAfee Show. Everyone's basically saying it's weird that Urban didn't travel back with the team. And I think everyone also acknowledges that it wouldn't even be a headline had the rest of the scandal not happened, with him and the girl and the pictures and the videos and all of that. Younghoe Koo nailed the extra point. So I do find it weird that your team's 0-4 and you're deciding to stay back and go to your restaurant and have all the drinks that you had. And, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of talk that this is kind of Urban's method. Things don't go well. He starts to self-implode and does what he can to help himself move on from the situation. And I don't know if that's it. It just could, for me, I think it could just be a lapse in judgment. I don't know the guy. Everything else I do know about him, though, everything I've ever read, with the exception of some of the not so I don't know what word I'm looking for. But he has a few situations that haven't looked great, in the public eye. But he seems like he is a good leader. Seems like he has the leadership qualities that you want. The problem is that a lot of those qualities work at the college level because you're dealing with kids. you're dealing with students, but now when you're in the NFL, there's a whole, it's a whole different relationship you have to have with these guys. You're not going to be able to tell a guy that's making, $25 million a year what he has to do or where he has to be. You can to a certain extent, like there has to be boundaries, but it's all about your approach. And I don't know, and I've never been in a locker room with Urban. I wasn't good enough at the game to play at Ohio State or play in the NFL, so I don't know what those interactions look like. But yeah, and I feel like I've rambled on about Urban enough here. So I do think that is going to play a factor in this game. I think having A.J. Brown back is going to be key for this Titans team. It's going to give Ryan Tannehill someone to look at downfield. This game opened Tennessee minus 7.5. It has since moved down to minus 4.5. So I'm assuming that a lot of people are taking that scandal game and saying it's actually going to favor the Jaguars. We ended up getting this at Titans minus 4.5. So I'm hoping the Titans don't break my heart again this week. We're going to go ahead and make that one an On the Rocks pick as well. We're taking it. I don't know. I hope the Titans don't disappoint me again. The next game, this one here is kind of a sucker play, but we're gonna talk about it. We got the New England Patriots and going down to Houston to take on the Texans. Both teams are also 1-3. Last week, New England lost to Tampa Bay 19-7. 19-17. It was a close game. It was actually a really good game if you watched it. And they were able to hold Brady to 0 touchdowns. Now, Brady did surpass Drew Brees for all-time passing yards. So he, that was a pretty cool moment if you watch that. I don't know if that's something that we're ever going to see broken, because obviously all those guys, Brady, Brees, Manning, Favre, all those guys had like 17, 18, 19, 20-year careers. And Brady's not done yet. I see Brady playing at least 2 to 3 more years. So I think that number is going to become very difficult to ever obtain, especially with the way that turnover happens in the NFL now. But the Texans lost to the Bills. They laid an egg. Actually got blasted 40-0. Bills are a good team. I really like Josh Allen. This game opened with the Bills minus 7.5. I'm sorry, not the Bills. The Patriots minus 7.5. Now the Patriots are minus 8. We are going to take the Patriots, but we're just going to take a money line. I know that's a sucker play. Not a sucker play. It's a soft play. It's an easy way out here. Let's see what the actual money line odds were. So we're getting them at minus 430. So I know that I mentioned previously that we probably wouldn't take any money line plays unless they were under minus 200. But we took it. So we're going to ride with it. That just adds another factor into our parlay. I'm really hoping the Patriots don't let me down. I'd be really upset if the Patriots are why we lose this parlay. Taking a money line when they're minus 8. Next game, or last game in our parlay, and we are actually going to lock in that Patriots game as an On the Rocks pick also. So those are going to be our 3 On the Rocks plays this week. We have the Carolina Panthers. We are going to have 4 On the Rocks picks this week. Panthers minus 3, Green Bay minus 3, Titans minus 4.5, and then New England money line. And then the last game that's going to be in our parlay, for our 6-leg parlay, we have the Monday Night Football game, the Indianapolis Colts at the Baltimore Ravens. The Colts are 1-3. The Ravens are 3-1. Indy beat the Dolphins last week for their first win, 27-17. Carson, the biggest thing I'm taking away from this game is that Carson Wentz finally took care of the ball. No fumbles, no interceptions, threw for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on the other side, the Ravens beat the Broncos 23-7. I'm very high on the Broncos. I know that we took the Broncos last week. However, Drew Lock came in the game, and you could tell chemistry was a little bit off there. The Ravens won 23-7. This was the Ravens' 43rd straight 100-yard rushing game, tying the Steelers during the period of 1974 to 1977. And this was almost lost. Like at the end of the game, Lamar ended up, instead of taking a knee, ended up running the ball 5 yards to get over that 100-yard mark. So questionable. I'll, maybe put an asterisk up there. But Lamar actually won this game with his passing, 316 yards passing. He only had 28 yards rushing. And Hollywood Brown actually came through finally and caught a few passes and had himself a touchdown. So this game opened Baltimore -6. It is now at Baltimore -7. And we're going to make up for that New England pick. We are actually going to take the Indianapolis Colts money line here. So we don't want the points. I think the Colts are playing well. I think the defense is playing extremely well. Carson Wentz, as long as he can take care of the ball, I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people miss, is that all we need Carson Wentz to do is just not turn the ball over. I think that they have a good enough team where they can win games as long as he's not the reason that they lose games. But that's going to wrap up the Big Boy Parlay. So 6-leg parlay coming in at plus 7,060. So if you bet $100, you can win $7,060. I think it's like 50 cents also added onto that. But if you only want to bet 10, you can still win $706. So that's again, that's what the Big Boy Parlay is all about. Risk a little, win a lot. And all it takes is, out of I guess it's an 18-week season this year with 17 games. If we can end up hitting one of those, I mean, that if nothing else, we'll break even. But so that's going to wrap all those games up that we have for the On the Rocks and for the Big Boy Parlay. Now let's just go ahead and do a quick run through. We're going to do this like a lightning round through the remainder of the games. So we're going to start with Miami at Tampa Bay. Opened at -9.5. It's now at -10. Tampa's favored. I'm going to stay away from this game. 10 points is a lot. I would say that if it would have stayed at 9.5, you can maybe make a case for going with 10. But -10, that's a lot of money to push. 10 points is kind of one of those magical numbers in the gambling world. Do I think Tampa has the capability of running away with this game? Absolutely. I'm just not confident enough to give a pick or even place a wager on this game. Next is going to be New Orleans Saints at the Washington football team. Washington football team they opened at +1. Now they're a 2.5-point dog. For this one here, I'll take Washington football team money line. Both these teams, we still don't know what their identity is. Jameis, inconsistent. Taysom Hill. Alvin Kamara, I tell you what, I have him on a couple fantasy teams, and he's been a big disappointment so far this year because that team doesn't know what they want to be. But then the Washington football team, they have a lot of good weapons. Antonio Gibson in the backfield, I think that he's likely to play today. And then you got Terry McLaurin, Ohio State guy, who is having another great season. So I would lean towards Washington football team money line here. So I would just forego getting the 2.5 points and just take them to win outright. I think again that their defense is going to have to come out and step up, and I think Taylor Heineke is gonna play well, and I just don't think New Orleans is. So next game we have the Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. Poor Tim. Being a Lions fan, he's really going through it this year, but he goes through it every year. He chooses to remain a fan. But we got the Vikings. This is in Minnesota, so we got the Vikings -8. That's what they opened up at. Now they're -10. If I were to take a pick in this game, I'm not going to, but I would probably take Detroit +10. Detroit has the ability to keep games close, and they have the ability to score points. They just don't have the ability to close games out and get wins. So 10 points is a lot of points. I would lean towards Detroit +10. Then we got Denver at Pittsburgh. I believe Teddy Bridgewater's back this week. Pittsburgh opened as a 1.5-point dog. They've since moved to a 1-point dog. So it's essentially a pick 'em. I would take Denver money line here. The money line's at -125. I just think Denver's the better team. Pittsburgh still has to figure a few things out. I don't know what's going on with Big Ben back there, and nor do I care. I really don't care too much about the Steelers. Next is going to be the Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders. Opened up Raiders -7. Now it's at Raiders -5.5. this is a game I'd stay away from. You got Justin Fields starting. You don't really know what that's going to end up looking like now that he's officially been named the starter. The Raiders are always a wild card. Don't ever really know how they're going to show up. Stay away from this game. Next game is Cleveland Browns at the Los Angeles Chargers. This game opened as a pick'em. Chargers are now -2.5. Baker's battling a torn labrum. That's going to hinder him, I think, the rest of the season. However, that running attack is still really good, but I just think the Chargers are the better all-around team, so I would take the Chargers -2.5 here if I had to lean one way or the other. Next game is the New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas opened up as an 8.5-point favorite. They've since moved to a 7-point favorite, so there's got to be some money coming in on the Giants there. I guess if I were to take a pick here, I'd take Dallas -7. Dallas is playing good football. Saquon's finally turning it back on a little bit up there in New York, but Dallas is the better team. I'm not sure if Amari Cooper is going to play tonight or not, so we're going to have to see, or today. We're going to have to see how that plays out. But I would go Dallas -7. And then San Francisco 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals opened as a 2.5-point favorite. They've since moved to a 5.5-point favorite. Even with that line movement, I'd still probably take the Cardinals -5.5. Trey Lance is going to start for San Francisco with Jimmy G being out. So I think the good play here. There's a reason I didn't take this in the parlay or for the On the Rocks. I think the good play is to go with the Arizona Cardinals. I just think that with their experience, we don't know what we're going to get from Trey Lance. Obviously, he played well last week. But I just don't think that I guess it depends on what their game plan is, because Trey Lance is a different quarterback than Jimmy G. If they fully transitioned over to more Trey Lance style packages, I could see San Francisco having a chance here. But for now, we're going to stick with Arizona -5.5. And last but not least, Buffalo at Kansas City. Kansas City has opened up as a 3.5-point favorite. They've since moved to a 3-point favorite. I'm taking Kansas City in this game, -3, strictly based off of the fact that they're playing at Arrowhead. Buffalo's a really good team. I have nothing bad to say about Buffalo. I just think that home field advantage is going to be the difference maker here. So we're going to roll with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But that wraps up all the games that we have picked. One last recap for you. We take the Jets money line. I dropped my phone a little bit ago when I was recording, so I don't have the score pulled up. But that one's not looking great. Carolina -3, Green Bay -3, Tennessee Titans -4.5, New England money line, and then the Indianapolis Colts money line as well. So that's going to be our picks for Week 5 in the NFL. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor. Follow us on all of our social media accounts. But most importantly, go check out our YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button. I know we don't have a ton of content up there yet, but that's going to be coming. The goal would be to get to 1,000 subscribers, so then we can start doing our live show on YouTube. YouTube is one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, and it just continues to grow. So that's really a market we want to tap into. We're also working with a great group of students from the Ohio State University. They're helping us out with getting a lot of our business things figured out as far as marketing, and helping us figure out if we can build some partnerships with local businesses in our community. So you might see us out and about in the near future doing some on-site shows. That's kind of always been the plan here. But yeah, so there's a lot of exciting things going on, but it all starts with you guys out there who are listening. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, like the page on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Like I said, I'm going to try to get this uploaded with just a still image, just so we can start getting some content up on there. But also tell your friends. You know, the best way to spread a podcast is word of mouth. Sports gambling is not legal in Ohio yet, but it is going to be coming. I mean, it just makes sense. All this money is going to all the states surrounding us. Eventually, it's going to have to come to the state. As we all know in politics, regardless of where you stand or what your views are, money truly rules all. And I feel like our politicians in the state are not going to continue to allow for all this money to go across the state line. So it'll be here eventually. Just bear with us. But outside of that, that's all we got. That's all I have. I say we because I would love to get the guys back on the show, and I'm just so used to that. But until next time, have a great weekend. Let's make some money, and I will talk to you next week.